China didn't stumble upon India's tech capabilities by accident. This wasn't some random headline in a newspaper or a passing rumor at an international conference. No, there was a sense of curiosity, a deliberate search, a desire to understand what was really happening across the border. At first, the assumption was simple. India had talented people, yes, but perhaps not the infrastructure or the resources to compete at the cutting edge. It was easy to believe that the nation's best and brightest would simply migrate abroad, working for global giants instead of building innovation at home. But curiosity has a way of challenging comfortable assumptions. So they look deeper. Not at the big flashy tech parks that make the news, but into the labs where the real magic was happening. Rooms filled with young engineers coding into the night, researchers running experiments with limited budgets but unlimited determination, and entrepreneurs designing products for markets that the rest of the world didn't even notice. And that's when the realization struck. What they found wasn't just technology. It was ambition in action, the kind of ambition that refuses to wait for perfect conditions, the kind that thrives under pressure, turning every obstacle into an opportunity. They saw young innovators who didn't just dream of building the next app. They dreamed of solving water shortages, transforming agriculture with AI, creating medical devices so affordable that even the poorest villages could benefit. They saw scientists who weren't working for a paycheck but for a purpose. This ambition wasn't loud, but it was relentless. It didn't show up in big headlines every day, but it showed up in the quiet victories. A faster algorithm, a cleaner energy prototype, a more secure communication network. And perhaps the most surprising thing, this drive wasn't fueled by competition alone. It was fueled by a deep sense of responsibility, a belief that India could not only catch up to the world, but could help lead it into the future. In the end, the real shock wasn't the technology itself. It was the mindset behind it. The belief that no challenge is too great, no dream too big, and no innovation too ambitious if it can make life better for millions. While the world's eyes were on flashy innovations elsewhere, self-driving cars parading through Silicon Valley, billion-dollar rockets launching in the West, and mega factories rising in the East, India was quietly working in the shadows. There were no massive media spotlights, no viral unveilings, no celebrity CEOs dominating the headlines. Instead, there was focus, discipline, and patience. Behind closed doors in modest buildings that wouldn't make it into glossy tech magazines, India was building labs that mattered. These weren't designed for show, they were designed for impact. Small teams of engineers, scientists, and visionaries were working shoulder to shoulder, solving problems that didn't just sound impressive in theory, but had the potential to transform daily life for billions. While the rest of the world chased the next big thing for investors, India was nurturing something far more valuable: talent. Young graduates from remote towns were being trained in coding, AI, biotech, and advanced engineering. They weren't just learning skills, they were being taught to think differently, to question the impossible, and to create solutions that worked not just in wealthy cities, but in the most rural, underserved corners of the nation. It was a slow burn, a kind of long-term investment most people overlook. And yet, this quiet preparation was laying the groundwork for breakthroughs that even India's competitors did not anticipate. When those breakthroughs started emerging, whether it was an AI model that could process dozens of languages with near-human accuracy, a medical diagnostic tool costing a fraction of global alternatives, or renewable energy systems adapted for small villages, the world was caught off guard. What India understood was simple but powerful. You don't need to be the loudest in the room to be the most prepared. In technology, real strength isn't always in what you reveal today, but in the foundations you've been building for years without fanfare. So while headlines were elsewhere, India's labs were becoming launch pads. And when the time came, those launch pads didn't just produce products, they produced possibilities. Possibilities that would reshape industries, challenge old hierarchies, and prove that sometimes the most disruptive And this is why India's future in technology isn't just promising, it's unstoppable. Because when you combine cutting-edge tools with people who have the courage to care, the result is more than innovation. It's transformation. The world may see India's growth in numbers, in market size, or in patents filed, but the real story, the one that will shape the future, is about the people. People whose ideas have no limits, whose energy has no boundaries, and whose hunger for change will redefine what technology can truly achieve. Unlike some nations with unlimited resources, India innovates under constraints, and that changes everything. When you have endless money, abundant infrastructure, and perfect conditions, innovation can become comfortable, sometimes even wasteful. But when resources are scarce, every decision matters. Every rupee, every hour, every component is used with purpose. That's the environment in which Indian innovation is forged. In India's labs, engineers and scientists don't ask, what's the most expensive way to solve this? They ask, what's the smartest, simplest way? This mindset doesn't just create technology, it creates technology that survives the real world. A real world where devices must work in heat and dust, where internet connections are slow or unreliable, where budgets are tight, and yet the need for solutions is urgent. Look at India's space program. The country sent a mission to Mars at a fraction of the cost other nations have spent on similar projects. Not by cutting corners, but by thinking differently. They stripped away unnecessary complexity, optimized every process, and relied on ingenuity over extravagance. The result? A globally respected achievement that proved resourcefulness can rival resources. The same approach appears in healthcare, where Indian innovators create diagnostic tools costing a fraction of Western equivalents, or in education, where low bandwidth platforms deliver high quality lessons to remote villages. These are not stripped down versions of someone else's idea. They are purpose-built solutions designed for maximum impact with minimum waste. Constraints also force collaboration. When budgets are small, people share knowledge, tools, and expertise more freely. This culture of cooperation fuels creativity because it encourages experimentation without fear of wasting resources. After all, there isn't much to waste in the first place. And here's the surprising truth. Solutions born under constraints often become more adaptable globally. A medical device designed to run without constant electricity in rural India can also serve communities in Africa, Southeast Asia, or disaster zones anywhere in the world. A payment app that works flawlessly on low-speed internet can thrive in any emerging market. This is why India's innovations often travel further than expected. They are built to endure, to adapt, and to work in conditions where others fail. So while some nations build technology for ideal conditions, India builds technology for the real world. And in the long run, that might just be the most valuable kind of innovation there is. China's discovery wasn't just about hardware or code. It was about something far deeper, the way Indian engineers collaborate. Not just within their own teams, not just within their own companies, but across borders, across industries, and in some cases, even with direct competitors. In most industries, competition is seen as a wall. You protect your secrets, guard your data, and keep others at arm's length. But in India's growing tech landscape, competition is often treated differently, not as a wall, but as a bridge. Engineers and innovators have learned that progress is faster when ideas flow freely, when expertise is shared, and when the goal is bigger than any single company's success. This mindset comes from a simple truth. India faces problems that are too big for any one organization to solve alone. Whether it's building scalable healthcare solutions for hundreds of millions, creating secure digital payment systems for 1 billion users, or developing AI that can handle dozens of complex languages, these challenges demand collective effort. So you'll find an AI researcher from Bengaluru working with a robotics team in Tokyo, a fintech startup in Mumbai partnering with a blockchain group in Singapore, or 2 rival firms in Hyderabad jointly developing a platform that benefits an entire sector. Collaboration isn't a side note, it's the strategy. Even within India, the diversity of industries makes this approach natural. A software engineer might work side by side with an agricultural scientist to create smart irrigation systems, or a cybersecurity expert might team up with a public health agency to protect sensitive medical data. These cross-disciplinary efforts lead to solutions that are not only technically strong, but also deeply practical. What shocked China wasn't just the openness of these collaborations, it was the speed of results. When teams from different BI Cheek grounds share knowledge without ego. They cut months, sometimes years, off the innovation cycle. And in today's tech race, speed can be the ultimate advantage. This collaborative spirit has another benefit. It builds trust. When nations, companies, and individuals see Indian engineers as partners rather than competitors, doors open. Opportunities multiply, and innovation moves from being a national effort to being a global movement. China came looking for cutting-edge code and advanced hardware. What they found was a network of minds working together in ways that break the old rules of competition and rewrite the future of progress. In India's tech labs, the understanding of data isn't just technical, it's strategic. It's not about collecting numbers for the sake of analysis. It's about turning those numbers into stories, patterns, and predictions that can shape entire industries and even national policies. In a world flooded with information, the difference between success and failure often lies in how you use data. Many nations gather data, but they treat it like a warehouse, full but unorganized. In India, the best labs treat data like a living, breathing asset. Every byte is sorted, connected, and examined to answer one question. What can this help us decide? Take the example of agriculture. By analyzing satellite imagery, weather patterns, and soil health data, Indian startups are helping farmers decide exactly when to plant, when to water, and when to harvest. The result? Higher yields, less waste, and greater food security. This isn't just a technical win. It's an economic and social transformation powered by data. In healthcare, data is being used to predict outbreaks, track disease spread, and allocate resources more efficiently. In finance, digital payment platforms use transaction patterns to offer microloans instantly to small business owners who have never set foot in a bank. In transportation, traffic data is shaping the design of smart cities, reducing congestion and improving safety. What's striking is that this use of data isn't limited to big corporations or government think tanks. Small startups, university research teams, and even individual innovators are leveraging data in ways that rival the biggest players. Cloud computing, open source tools, and India's own growing digital infrastructure have made advanced analytics accessible to anyone with the skills and vision to use them. But perhaps the most strategic element is how this intelligence flows upward. Insights from these labs don't just improve products, they influence policy. When governments can see clear, data-backed evidence of what works and what doesn't, they can design regulations, incentives, and investments that accelerate progress across the country. This is why data in India is more than a technical matter. It's a national asset. It's the raw material for better decisions, smarter innovations, and stronger competitiveness on the global stage. In the end, the world's most valuable resource isn't oil or gold, it's insight. And India is learning to turn every byte of data into a decision that moves the nation forward. Instead of following the West's decades-long tech path, India is leapfrogging, skipping outdated stages and jumping directly into advanced AI, biotech, and quantum research. This isn't by accident, it's by design. The traditional technology journey in many Western nations was a slow climb. First build basic infrastructure, then expand manufacturing, then invest in computing, and only after Economists reach advanced research. But India, arriving later to the global tech race, had an advantage. The ability to see where others had already been, learn from their mistakes, and avoid building roads to nowhere. Why invest billions in outdated legacy systems when you can start with the newest, most efficient technologies? Why spend years perfecting yesterday's solutions when tomorrow's breakthroughs are already in sight? This mindset is why rural India, for example, never fully adopted landline telephones. Instead, it jumped straight to mobile connectivity. The same is now happening in entire sectors, bypassing the slow evolution and heading directly into the future. In artificial intelligence, Indian researchers are not just replicating Western models. They're training systems in multiple Indian languages, integrating AI into agriculture, healthcare, and governance, and solving local problems with global potential. In biotech, teams are designing affordable genetic testing kits and vaccine delivery systems that can serve both urban hospitals and remote villages. And in quantum research, India is investing in computing systems that could one day outpace classical machines, transforming industries from cybersecurity to pharmaceuticals. Leapfrogging also means embracing new business models. Fintech in India didn't grow by slowly modernizing banks. It exploded by giving people who had never owned a bank account the ability to send and receive money instantly on their phones. EdTech platforms didn't slowly evolve from printed textbooks. They jumped straight into AI-powered learning experiences. This approach is risky, yes, but it's also faster and often cheaper. By skipping the cost of maintaining outdated systems, India can channel more resources into building future-ready solutions. And because these innovations are designed for scalability from the start, they can be expanded to other nations facing similar development challenges. The result, India is no longer playing catch-up. It's starting to run its own race. And in some areas, it's not just keeping pace with the West, it's moving ahead. Leapfrogging isn't just a shortcut, it's a strategy, one that allows India to turn its late start into a head start in shaping the technologies that will define the next century. India's diversity is not just social, it's intellectual. It's not only about having people from different languages, religions, and regions. It's about having different ways of thinking, shaped by unique life experiences. And when those perspectives meet in the same lab, magic happens. In a typical Indian tech lab, you might find a coder from Kerala working alongside a data scientist from Punjab, an AI researcher from Tamil Nadu, collaborating with a design expert from Gujarat, and a project manager who studied in Europe, brainstorming with a rural innovator who built his first device out of scrap metal. Each person sees the problem differently, and that's the advantage. When everyone thinks the same way, solutions tend to be narrow. But when minds shaped by different cultures, environments, and challenges come together, creativity accelerates. One person might see a technical shortcut that saves months of development. Another might suggest a feature inspired by rural needs that makes the product relevant to millions more users. Another might identify cultural nuances that help the product succeed globally. This intellectual diversity also speeds up problem solving. In a lab where team members come from different academic backgrounds, say engineering, medicine, agriculture, and business, A challenge isn't passed from one department to another. It's tackled from multiple angles at once. That's why a health tech startup in India can go from concept to prototype in months, not years. And perhaps most importantly, this diversity makes product as built in India, naturally adaptable for global adoption. A payment app tested in India's diverse markets across urban megacities, small towns, and remote villages can handle the complexities of other countries with ease. A medical device designed to work in multiple Indian languages can quickly scale to dozens of languages worldwide. In many ways, India's labs are microcosms of the world. They are proving grounds where technology isn't just tested for function. It's tested for cultural fit, affordability, and real-world resilience. That's a huge advantage in a global economy where products that ignore cultural context often fail, no matter how advanced they are technically. So India's diversity isn't a challenge to overcome, it's a competitive edge. In a century where innovation will be driven as much by understanding people as by understanding machines, this blend of perspectives could be India's most powerful tool for leading the next wave of global technology. What shocked observers wasn't that India had tech labs. Everyone knew they existed. The surprise came from the scale of their ambition, the speed of their execution, and the global relevance of their innovations. Many outsiders assumed that Indian tech hubs were primarily service-oriented, writing code for foreign companies, outsourcing back-office tasks, or providing IT support. But when they looked closer, they saw something entirely different. Teams aiming to redefine industries, not just participate in them. The scale of ambition was the first revelation. These labs weren't thinking small. They weren't building apps just for a city or a region. They were designing solutions that could serve billions. A medical diagnostic tool wasn't meant for one hospital chain. It was designed for every clinic from Delhi to Dakar. An AI translation system wasn't limited to a handful of languages. It aimed to break communication barriers worldwide. Then came the speed of execution. Projects that might take years elsewhere were being developed in months. This wasn't because of shortcuts, it was because of a culture that thrives on urgency. Indian innovators have learned to work fast because the problems they face, health crises, environmental challenges, infrastructure gaps, don't wait. Teams prototype quickly, test in real-world conditions, gather feedback, and adapt without endless layers of bureaucracy. Finally, there was the global relevance of their work. These weren't niche products tied to one market. They were universally useful. A fintech platform created to handle the challenges of India's vast, cash-heavy economy could also transform financial inclusion in Africa and Southeast Asia. An agricultural AI tool designed for monsoon-dependent farming could help farmers in Latin America. For many observers, this combination, big dreams, rapid action, and worldwide applicability, was completely unexpected. They had underestimated how far Indian innovation had come and how quickly it was moving. And perhaps that's the real story here. It's not enough to have talent and resources. What truly disrupts the status quo is ambition paired with relentless speed and a vision that transcends borders. India's tech labs are no longer just part of the global conversation. They are shaping it. The shock was not that India had entered the race. The shock was that in some ways it had already moved into the lead. The discovery serves as a reminder. The next big breakthrough could come from anywhere. And in today's world, anywhere is no longer limited to the traditional centers of innovation. It could be a lab in Bengaluru, a startup in Hyderabad, a research center in Pune, or even a student's dorm room in a small town. The barriers that once kept innovation confined to a few countries have been dismantled by global connectivity, open source collaboration, and the relentless spread of digital skills. For decades, certain nations were seen as the default leaders in technology, while others were assumed to be followers. That assumption is now outdated and dangerous. Those who still underestimate India's tech capabilities risk not just being surprised, but being left behind entirely. India's strength doesn't lie in mimicking what others have done. It lies in approaching problems differently, in building solutions for conditions most global companies have never even considered, in finding ways to deliver world-class results without world-class budgets, in making technology not just advanced, but accessible. This shift means that innovation is no longer about where the technology is invented. It's about where the problems are solved most effectively. And increasingly, those solutions are being born in India's diverse, resourceful, and determined tech ecosystem. The lesson here is clear. Dismissing a nation's potential because it doesn't fit the old mold is a costly mistake. Just as Japan once shocked the world with its manufacturing revolution and China reshaped global supply chains, India is now redefining what it means to be a technological powerhouse. The next AI algorithm that transforms healthcare, the next energy breakthrough that powers entire nations sustainably, or the next fintech platform that connects millions to the global economy, any of these could emerge from India. And when they do, they won't just serve local markets, they'll change how the world works. So the question for the rest of the world is simple. Will you partner with this new wave of innovation? Or will you ignore it until it's too late? Because in the future that's unfolding, success will belong to those who recognize that genius is not bound by geography. The world's next leaders in technology are already at work, and India is one of the places where they are rising fastest. So here is the truth we can no longer ignore. The age where innovation belonged to a select few countries is over. The future is not written in the glass towers of a few global capitals. It is being written in the crowded labs of Bengaluru, in the startup hubs of Hyderabad, in the research rooms of Delhi, and in the bright minds scattered across every corner of India. China's discovery was not just about what India has built. It was about what India is becoming. A nation that doesn't wait for permission. A nation that doesn't follow the old path, but carves its own. And for the rest of the world, this is not a warning. It's an invitation to collaborate, to learn, to grow together. Because the breakthroughs coming out of India will not just change India, they will change all of us.